My wife just stabbed herself. There's no pulse. There's blood all over the place.
A strange 911 call from Kyle Long led to a months-long investigation into the death of his wife, Rachel.
Okay, where did she stab herself?
In the closet and then out into the bathroom.
Now Kyle Long is charged with murder. I'll tell you why detectives believe he came up with a cover story. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Rachel Long and Kyle Long, they were married back in 2015. They had 2 children together. Rachel groomed dogs for a living and even owned her own dog grooming business. From the outside looking in, she had a picture-perfect life. But sadly, Rachel's life ended on October 23rd, 2025. Rachel and her husband lived in London, Ohio, a small city outside of the state's capital, Columbus. That day in October 2025, Kyle Long called 911 from his and Rachel's home and made a strange claim.
Madison County 911, where's your emergency?
My wife just stabbed herself. There's no pulse. There's blood all over the place.
Now, this is not the type of call dispatchers usually get, that someone has stabbed themselves. The call continues.
What's your name?
Kyle Long.
Okay, Kyle.
I'm trying to see.
Kyle, take a deep breath for me, okay? We're going to get help started. How old is your wife?
She's 32. She's numerous times where she kept going and doing it.
Okay, where did she stab herself?
In the closet and then out into the bathroom.
No, I mean, where on her body?
In her neck. She took a big knife with it.
Do you know where the knife is?
Yeah, it's still in her neck.
Okay, don't touch it, okay? Okay, take a deep breath for me, okay? I don't want you to hyperventilate. Okay.
I got to call somebody. My daughters are going to be coming on the bus, and I need somebody to pick them up.
Okay, is there anyone else there with you?
No, it's just us. I was working, and I heard her, and I went in there to grab her and everything just...
Okay, when are your children going to be home?
Around 4:30 or a little bit after.
Okay. Where is your wife in the home, sir?
She's right by the toilet on the floor, puddle of blood.
Okay. Okay, she's in the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay. Does she have a pulse, and is she breathing? Sir?
I don't...
Can you check for a pulse?
I don't feel a pulse.
Now, this 911 call is absolutely horrific. Kyle Long, as you can hear, is telling the 911 dispatcher that Rachel has stabbed herself repeatedly in the neck and their children. In about 20 minutes, the children will be getting off the school bus.
Are you willing and able to attempt CPR? I can give you instructions.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna run over.
Okay. Okay, can you put me on speakerphone, sir, and I'll give you instructions.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm trying to turn her over. She's not. The knife fell out. I don't know.
That's okay. Do you have anything to put on the wound that's in her neck?
Yeah. Hold on.
Okay, it's okay. Are you still there, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not getting anything from her.
Okay. Can you put me on speakerphone? It might be a little easier to hear each other.
Yeah, you're on speaker right now. I can't get anything from her. Can I call my dad or something or someone to come get the girls before they come in?
Okay. Do you have anything that you can put on the wound in her neck?
I tried to put...
Can you fold up some towels and put on it and be able to hold pressure?
Yeah, it's right there. I don't know. She just started running, like she did it, and then she just kept doing it and running into the bathroom and just nonstop, like repetitive.
That's okay. That's okay. Where is the knife now?
It's on the floor.
Okay. Is it within reach of her?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you take your foot and kick it to the side so it's outside of her reach?
Yeah, it's outside of her reach.
Okay. Okay. Are you going to attempt CPR or no?
Hold on.
Okay.
Can somebody call because my kids are going to be here in 20 minutes, and I don't want them to see anything.
That's okay. Who can we call for you?
My father.
Now, one thing that seems notable here is that Kyle Long still hasn't attempted CPR. He could be in shock, and maybe he just doesn't know what to do.
Take a deep breath, Kyle. Okay.
I don't know.
Do you feel like you're able to attempt CPR?
Let me try. Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, so much blood. I don't know.
That's okay. Okay, Kyle, take a deep breath, okay? We're getting help to you. It's okay. Are you still in the bathroom with her?
Yes, I'm still right here.
Okay. Okay. Is she moving at all?
No, her eyes are open.
Okay.
No pulse.
Is she breathing at all? Is someone at your door? Kyle?
Hold on.
Okay. Okay.
All right, EMS is here.
EMTs were not able to save Rachel Long. She had already passed away by the time they arrived. And the scene that they found, it was gruesome, incredibly gruesome. And again, the claim by Kyle Long was incredibly strange. It's not impossible that a person would stab themselves, but it's certainly not something that EMTs would see very often. A probable cause affidavit states, according to Kyle, his wife Rachel came home from work, and after a short time being home, she went into the master bathroom while he was in the master bedroom working at his desk. Kyle stated that he heard what he thought was laughing, followed by screaming, and when he looked into the bathroom area, he saw Rachel Long stabbing herself several times in the face and neck area. It was determined that Kyle Long and Rachel Long were home alone at the time of the incident. The affidavit goes on to describe what the EMTs and detectives found when they arrived. Rachel was located in the master bathroom near the toilet with several injuries consistent with being stabbed with a knife on her face and neck. There were also visible injuries consistent with knife cuts on her hands. Rachel's clothes were saturated with blood, along with a large amount of blood pooling around her. A knife was located on the right side of the toilet, along with several pieces of paper towels or toilet paper found in the pooling blood next to the knife. The body was photographed and placed into a bag and sealed for transport to the Montgomery County morgue. Kyle Long was taken to the sheriff's office. Of course, detectives wanted to speak with him about what happened, and they say that it was at this time that Kyle told them that Rachel wanted a separation. And then the autopsy was conducted. During the autopsy, the pathologist stated to Detective Henry that the wounds on her hands appear to be defensive-type wounds. This was later documented in the final autopsy report, indicating defensive-type wounds on her left and right hands. There were also wounds located on Rachel's right arm, which conflicted with Kyle's statement saying she had the knife only in her right hand. Per the autopsy findings, the cause of death was determined to be multiple sharp force injuries. The autopsy identifies a minimum of 17 sharp force injuries. And there was more evidence that detectives said they gathered, including interviewing Rachel's friends. One said she'd texted with Rachel just a short time before she died, and she didn't mention being angry or suicidal. In fact, the two discussed what Rachel was going to wear to a concert the next evening and how she would have to get that outfit ready. That text conversation is going to be very important to the detectives, and I'll talk about that with retired homicide detective Tom Smith in just a short bit. There was also evidence inside the home that investigators didn't feel matched Kyle Long's story. The sheriff's office enlisted the help of Ohio's Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and analysts did a 360-degree scan of the home. Detectives wrote that the analysts noted evidence at the scene that would be indicative of a struggle between individuals. And the detective wrote they reviewed the layout of the residence, and it was evidence that Kyle could not have seen within the bathroom or the closet from his vantage point, as he described to detectives. So there are red flags popping up all over the place as far as the investigators are concerned. Kyle Long was taken into custody this week and charged with murder. All right, so let's bring in retired NYPD detective Tom Smith, also the host of the Gold Shield Show on YouTube. Tom, thanks so much for coming on. I really got to get your thoughts on this one because this reminds me of another case I covered back in Ohio a long, long time ago where a husband calls 911 and claims his wife, died in the home or is dying in the home. The thing that gets me about this one, you don't hear a lot about people stabbing themselves. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It can happen. But stabbing yourself in the face and neck, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow because if you look at just patterns of happen because the pain that you're in and they want it done quick. So to inflict numerous painful shots on yourself is something that isn't the norm. And in the way that, he claims she did it is definitely not typical of a attempt. And, there's a lot to this that I would like to unpack. There's a lot of questions and a lot of things I would have loved to have done and seen with running this investigation or even being on the scene and in a room with the husband for sure.
So, Tom, what would you have liked to have done? Because it sounds like they took Kyle down to the police station, the sheriff's office. And of course they want to talk to him because he's the witness. He's laying out this story on 911. He's saying she stabbed herself. And so, what would you have done had this case landed in your lap?
Yeah, well, you have to talk to him, obviously, because of just the circumstances. And, you're going to take your time doing it. You're going to be sympathetic at first because you want him to come down to a certain level. Even if you have a thought that he was responsible for this, you're going to talk to him as a surviving spouse and be sympathetic to him, but lay out all the facts that you know at that time. A case like this, there's going to be numerous factors that come out later on because of autopsies, because of crime scene analysis, because of all that. But it's important to get the initial story from him, and here's why. Because a lot of criminals, when they're setting up a crime, will have a plan with the taking care of the crime, committing the crime, but don't anticipate what happens later. And that's when you get them jammed up, and that's when you want to really go at them because they're not thinking of the questions you're going to bring up or the evidence you're going to have, and that's when you really get them tied up. So it's really important to talk to them quick with the information you have right away.
How important is this 911 call here to you in this investigation? There are things that really stand out to me in this 911 call, but I want to know what stands out to you in this 911 call.
Yeah, there's two things that popped up immediately. Is one, his breathing. There's tired breathing and then there's panic breathing. Those are two different things. If you notice, his voice wasn't shaky at all. His breathing was enhanced and breathing very heavy, which tends to lead me in the direction of being tired, not being stressed out. The other thing is you have your wife who is now bleeding profusely and maybe still alive. No thought of CPR, no thought of rendering aid to her. You know, he mentions the fact of the knife is still in her neck, but makes no attempt to help her in that manner. So all those are bullet points I'm going to have written down in the, you know, when I go and talk to him, because those are the main things that stood out right away when I listened to the tapes.
And that stood out to me. The dispatcher, I mean, you could be freaking out, of course, freaking out because you're like, you just witnessed this horrific thing that you're claiming your wife did, stabbing herself in the neck and face. But then this call taker is like, okay, are you going to try CPR? I mean, like, they're like, can you do this? Like, and it doesn't sound like he made any effort to do that. And so you need to be listening to what the call taker or the dispatcher is doing. And your first instinct should be, in my opinion, to do whatever this person is telling you to do to save your wife. There's another thing that stood out to me. He's like, my kids are going to be home in like 20 minutes. So that, to me, you know, if he is indeed guilty of this crime and it unfolded the way the police are saying, that's a red flag too, because that's showing to me that maybe this wasn't planned out. I mean, maybe this is something where she says, I want a separation. I don't want to be married to you anymore. And then he gets mad and stabs her. And then he's not thinking that, oh my God, the kids are getting off the bus in 20 minutes.
I think you're 100% right on that, and nailed that really well. And I think that's what happened. The conversation took place, and when you stab someone that many times, that is a rage crime, without a doubt. In the face, in the neck, that is pure rage and hatred about what was going on. And then, like you said, I think reality kind of time stepped in and reality came back into the picture, and he thought about the kids. And not wanting the kids to see that, obviously, but initially having the kids maybe question it. What did you do to mom? What happened? Anything like that is a possibility of coming out. You know, so I think you definitely nailed that with the timing of it, with it being not planned out. I don't think it was planned at all, because most crimes that take place like this and the circumstances of it aren't planned.
Mm-hmm. And that raises another question to me. You know, they always say the most dangerous time for a woman or spouse in general, I guess, is when they're trying to leave. And so we don't know what the nature of that conversation is. I'm assuming there's more detail in the actual interview of this guy, Kyle Long, more than what they detailed in the affidavit. They just said, oh, he disclosed that she wanted a separation. So I'm sure there was more information about that in the actual interview with detectives and when that happened and everything like that. But, you know, it's like, what else was going on in the background of this relationship? You know, she didn't just like up and say one day, like, maybe she did, but I don't think she just up and said, I want out. I mean, there had to have been something precipitating that.
Yeah, actually, definitely. And that's where the investigation comes into play. You know, there's going to be social media dumps into both of their social media accounts. There's going to be many interviews of their friends, their family, anyone who knew them very well about what was going on behind the scenes. You can even go to the next step and interview the children about what was going on in the house. Were there fights? Were there arguments going on? Anything like that. So all that's going to culminate into the possible motive behind this. And that's what I meant before, that this investigation is going to go through different levels and different steps and be, you know, to come up with the big picture of what happened, including the motive.
You talked about these dumps that they would do, the electronic data, you know, so often these days, the digital data, the electronic data tells the story. And that seems to be the case in this case. And so we have basically, you know, search warrant returns from Amazon, Apple iCloud, email accounts belonging to Kyle and Rachel. And an analyst went through everything. And it shows, this is very important, a 911 call, this is what they're saying, was placed from Kyle Long's phone prior to a second 911 call that actually connected to dispatch. This fact was inconsistent with the information provided by Kyle during the interview. At no time did Kyle disclose that he called 911 and hung up before a subsequent 911 call connected to dispatch 4 minutes later. So they're saying he dialed 911, it didn't connect, he hung up, waited 4 minutes, and then called 911 again. So something happened. Did he stop? Are they going to say he stopped and like paused for 4 minutes is a long time, Tom. I mean, a lot of people might say, oh, that's not that long. It's a long time when somebody's laying on the floor dying.
Right. And I think, if I want to speculate on something, she wasn't dead yet. Maybe she was still moving around. Maybe he heard a breath. Maybe he heard something that startled him and said, oh, I can't do this yet, until I know she's dead. And like you said, 4 minutes is a long time in a situation like that. So I think something like that occurred. She moved. Something prompted him that he didn't have his story ready yet. He wasn't, ready to make that call yet. Something, like you said, happened. I'm going to lean towards the victim, either still breathing or moving around or something like that.
Or did Rachel try to call 911 from his phone and he got to her? Because there's a second part of this, and that's speculation on my part. This is purely speculation. The affidavit goes on to say, furthermore, the text message observed from her friend's phone indicates the last message between Rachel and Madison occurred 4 minutes prior to the 911 call from Kyle's phone that did not connect. So we've got like this window of time. She's texting her friend talking about the concert and getting this outfit ready, and then there's a time period, and then he called, there's a 911 call from his phone. Was there an argument? Did something happen? Obviously. And then there's this stabbing, and then there's another 911 call 4 minutes later. We're missing some key information.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the interview with him. Right off the bat, he's going to claim, I was stressed out, whatever, excuse he comes up with. But that is definitely something to pin him on. And the calls ahead of time, the text messages with her friend talking about a concert, that doesn't line up with someone, who may do something to themselves. So all of that, like I said, is going to create a timeline, which is going to be important in this. Timelines are very important in crimes, from the beginning of the day, and conversations that they're going to extract from their social medias, from their phones, leading up to this. That's going to be really important.
And one last thing that interests me, the return from Amazon. Was that for an Alexa device, an Echo, one of those devices where you say Alexa or what have you? I know we have one of those, and I think that those can sometimes kind of collect data. And I'm just interested to know if Alexa was listening in on any of this.
Oh, no doubt. And they do that. We all have experienced that, I think. But that's when I get to the arguments and the relationship and what's taking place in that house. And that's why I said, the kids may play a part in this. The neighbors are going to play a part in this, if they heard anything going on over the days leading up to this. But that is very interesting with the return of that, because any mention towards that device is going to enact it, and it's going to start recording, and then you could get the data from that.
Most definitely. Well, it is a case to watch. It's very sad. A woman is gone, and her children now are without their mother and without their father. Very sad case. Tom Smith, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Kyle Long appeared in court on Friday morning. A judge ordered him held on a $1.5 million bond. An attorney representing him told a reporter working for a local news outlet that his client says he did not murder his wife. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.